Our environment is formed by preconceived ideology, social phenomena, and accommodation standards that form our understanding of disability. In other words, disability, visible or not, seems to be constructed by our environment. I think the biggest question that's been invoked in this class for me has been, who is our physical world built for? When we look around, how accommodating is our physical space? There seems to be a lack of communication when it comes to accommodation and what it should entail in our world. Our physical environment is built for able-bodied individuals who fit into the standards of who has the privilege to have their needs met in our society. Those who don't fit into society's definition of normal are hardly accommodated for. I pulled a quote from William Smith's writing in The Accessible Parking Space as Prosthetic, a rhetorical paradox, because I like how he talks about disability accommodation and how it's often considered only when convenient to. Quote, "The accessible parking space is a cultural and technological artifact that intersects two powerful overlapping hegemonic systems which control that space. Legally, the space is an accommodation, a semantic designation implying an inconvenience rather than a right, charity rather than social justice. Medically, the space bears the imprimatur of physicians who define the user's body as impaired enough to benefit from the space, reflecting a form of biopower that simultaneously subjectifies and objectifies people with disabilities. In the system, to accommodate someone is to consider them as an afterthought, a concession to reality." Quote. Cultural and societal ideology all on its own can be disabling for individuals. How a space treats disability, whether it be poorly or with care, determines the state of that disability and how it affects the disabled individual. Society creates these exceptions to the norm to accommodate anyone different from the proposed image of an able-bodied individual. These anomalies to the norm are constructed based off implied capabilities everyone is expected to have, and if they don't, then they are labeled as disabled. It's easy to view disability negatively when society puts in place preconceived notions and ideologies that are not backed by personal experience or perspective. What I mean by this is negative stigma towards disability heightens how individuals are impacted by their own disabilities or the disabilities of those around them. Disability is often labeled as something to fix, and the individual who carries this disability is seen as needing to be fixed. I don't think an individual's disability is fully what limits them from success in a space. Rather, the space itself is limiting. The method of fixing the individual teaches the able-bodied narrative is always the right one, and I've witnessed that seeking to normalize a space through suppression and exclusion leads to a narrow-minded atmosphere. Our surroundings may seem like everyone is accommodated for in various ways, but really they are not. There are societal ideas of disability accessibility, such as disability accommodation at school events, handicap parking spots, and closed captioning for videos. This changes my view on disability accessibility and when settings are friendly or accessible. What are we applying when we say this? That this is a safe and accessible space for anyone to be accommodated in, or that we will make an exception to the rule on disability's behalf? Disability is universal. It's just not treated as such. Disabled individuals take up the population just as able-bodied individuals do. Universal design would mean that we are adapting for social inclusion, or we are at the very least trying to construct our physical world in a different way so that we can embrace marginalized groups in our physical world. Universal design could deconstruct the idea of implied capabilities and pave the way for hope. Hope for flexibility and space in use, intuitive design regardless of user's experience, and optional physical effort. This design can offer a proactive approach to future architectural possibilities. Disability can continue to push us to think about how we have built the physical and social world around us. Through universal design, we can welcome all bodies and minds into our physical world and create a more empowering world for disability in various environments.